Hey everyone, Dr. Erik here with My Health Solution Chiropractic and Weight Loss. What we're going to be going over on today's video is really important. So we're going to be talking about goals, expectations, and the definition of success really when it pertains to you and your goals and expectations. So what we're going to be going over today is really creating a way to figure out where your ideal weight loss goal is. We're going to be going over the different idea of, are you someone that works best if you just go straight towards your ideal goal, or are you someone that works a little bit better with stepping stones along the way? Another really important topic is going to be this idea of managing expectations. What is an appropriate time frame to expect your goals, what to expect from the scale, and then also really defining what it means to be successful. What does success look like for you, among other things. All of these topics are really important because until we're able to help manage our expectations and really have a better understanding of what's going to take place, little things can really disrupt the entire journey. And so it's really important that we go over these different mental frames and frameworks so that as you're going along the journey, you will have a better understanding of what to expect, and as you expect things to happen, it will help reinforce that you actually are on the right track with where you want to go. So one of the first things when we're looking at this is really looking at setting exceptional goals. And so a lot of people may have heard about this acronym before, and if you haven't, that's perfectly okay. But a very common way to approach goals is using this SMART acronym. So what does this mean? It means that we're looking at things that are very specific. Everybody's health is definition of what it means to be healthy is very different. So a lot of times I'll talk to people when we're doing consultations and they say, I'll ask them, what are their two main goals? Like, oh, I want to get off medications and I want to be healthy. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Everyone's definition is very different. One person's definition of health might mean that they want six-pack abs. Another person might mean they want to get off medications. Another person might be where they want to be able to go up and down the stairs without being winded. And so any one of those definitions could fall under that idea of being healthy, but it doesn't really mean anything until you can start to define it. So you really want to make sure that it's your goals or where you want to get to is something that's going to be specific. That idea of being healthy means nothing. It's way too vague. With that being said, though, it doesn't have to be a number on the scale. Like I said, it could be like, oh, I want to be able to do my first 5K. I want to be able to do fit into my jeans. I want to be able to get into a two-piece swimsuit or a swimsuit for the vacation, right? It doesn't have to be a number on the scale, but it does need to be specific. Okay. The next part about this is that it's also got to be measurable. The purpose of this is that it helps you track your progress. When you are looking at this idea of quote unquote getting healthy, you need some type of feedback mechanism to see if you're moving in the right direction. And so if you're not using the scale as a goal, which is perfectly fine, what other ways can you measure progress that you are moving in the right direction, or that you need to change your behavior if things aren't moving the way that you want them to? They also need to be achievable. And so what I mean by this is that, is the goal that you're setting something that's appropriate for where you're at in life, for your body type, those types of things. For me, no matter how hard I work out, will not look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I do not have the body for it, but it doesn't mean that I still can't make a really good stride towards things in that direction, but it's realistically not going to happen. I am not going to be a professional hockey player. I'm not going to be a professional athlete. I'm past my prime, right? 40 years old, not going to happen. So you want to make sure that the goal that you have when you're looking at this weight loss or health journey is achievable and something that you can actually attain, right? And then the other part of it with that, or the next frame, is this idea that it's got to be relevant or realistic. And so what I mean by that too is that if there were someone, I'll just use myself as an example, I'm 6'3", 190 pounds. If my goal was to get down to 100 pounds, that's not realistic, nor is it safe. But the point is that there needs to be some type of realistic or relevant goal for you. And also when we say relevant, it's important that it's your goal and not somebody else's goal. So a lot of times people will come in to my office and they'll have maybe they will have a 40-pound weight loss goal, and their goal is 40 pounds. I know, looking at their numbers and their frame, they could stand to lose 60. That doesn't really mean anything to me. I don't care. I want them to lose that 40 pounds because that's what's relevant to them, right? So, and then the last part of this is the T, which stands for time bound. Now, there are important factors when we're looking at time bound, when we're considering our health and weight loss journey. At the same time, it's also not super important because ultimately this needs to be a lifelong goal, right? So there's a really, really important concept that someone called Simon Sinek, he's like a business coach, entrepreneur coach, has come up with this idea, or it's this idea of like what are called infinite and finite games. And that's literally going to be a whole video on it. But when we're looking at health, health is considered an infinite game. It doesn't stop, whether you're playing it or not. The only time that health as a game stops is when you die. And so whether you're being active in your goal towards health or not active, you're still playing that game, which is one of people's biggest challenge as they're looking at this idea of what it means to be healthy, is that they think that, oh, I only have to be healthy for a month, or I only have to be healthy for six months or a year, and then I don't have to play that game anymore. That's not how that works. You're playing that game whether you're actively participating in it or not. And so ultimately, the time frame for most people to be healthy is from now, wherever you are right now, till the end of your life. And so that's why when we're looking at this time-bound concept, it's not as important, but it also can be good to set kind of micro goals along the way. So yeah, your long-term goal might be to lose 40 pounds and then keep it off the rest of your life, but you can also then incorporate some of these time-bound frames where it's like, okay, I want to lose my next 10 pounds in the next 2-3 months, right? So it's you can set up those micro time-bound goals, but ultimately, hopefully your health is a long-term, lifelong goal. And so that's where some of that time-bound aspect to this acronym does not quite apply. So making sure you're setting these exceptional goals using this idea of the SMART acronym here, really, really important. The other thing that is important as we're going through this is really understanding the difference between what your ideal weight is versus going through these stepping stones. So one of the questions that a lot of people have, or this idea like, well, how do I determine what my ideal weight should be? A very common thing that not everybody likes, but is using a BMI chart. And I will be the first person to tell you, this does not apply to everyone. However, it does apply to about 75% of the population at minimum, if not even more. And the problem where we're coming into is that because there are so many people that are so overweight and obese, when you look at where you actually should be, people are like, that's not attainable, which it absolutely is. It's just that the health as a country is going in such the wrong direction. When people look at the BMI chart, they think that that's not a realistic goal, which it very much is. We just got to change the way that we look at food, we look at health, look at weight as a society. So the other factor, the other way you can look at this though, is also going to be something that's called your body fat percentage. And so with the body fat percentage, this can once again also be a little bit better representation of where your ideal weight should be. Now, the difference between BMI and body fat percentage, BMI is a range that's the same for an 18-year-old man, male, young man, as it is for a 75-year-old female. So that's where some of the discrepancies come into play. Body fat is going to be a little bit more specific to a female or male your age. However, there's also a little more variety or variability in how body fat can be measured. There are certain scales that can do measurements called bioimpedance scales. You can use the tape measure system or the calipers. You can do bod pods. And so there are numerous ways that you can test this. Typically, when you're looking at it, the ways that are the most accurate are typically the ones that are going to be the most expensive. You can do DEXA scans is another one. And so there are different ways that you can do it to measure where your body fat percentage is. But once again, that is going to also vary between your sex and your age. Along here, somewhere along here, I will upload a link that you can use for the BMI chart, and then also kind of look at body fat percentages through there. Side note, when you're looking at things as far as calculating your BMI, calculating your body fat, there are some pretty good scales out there that will do that are relatively inexpensive, and I can put links through there as well. As far as different brands, you can usually get a pretty good body impedance scale, or a body impedance scale for, as at least the recording of this video, 25 to maybe 35 bucks. It's a pretty good quality type scale. So you don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but once again, the accuracy isn't going to be as good. And so like I said, is it this idea of, are you someone that responds better to saying, this is my end weight, this is all that I want to focus on and getting there, and that's going to be my goal? Or are you someone that, let's say you have 60 pounds to lose, do you want to do it in 15 or 20 pound intervals? Right? There's no right or wrong with this. This is the part where you need to figure out what works best for you. And this is one of the whole things when people are coming into the office and going through this process. It's really trying to personalize it for you because everybody does respond a little differently. Some people respond better to just, this is my end goal, this is where I'm going to. Other people respond better to these stepping stones. I want 5 pounds, I want 10 pound stepping stones along the way. Like I said, it's no right or wrong, it's just whatever works best for you. Yep, already talked about that. So one way to think about this though is to really look at different areas in your life where you've set goals and accomplished them. And so when you went through those other areas in your life and you're setting these goals and accomplished those goals, how did you do it? Did you set it as small stepping stones, or did you say, this is my main goal, this is what I'm going to do, that's all I'm going to focus on, right? Like I said, no right or wrong. The biggest thing is to figure out which way or which one of those kind of setting those goals creates the least amount of resentment towards you, right? So, and the least feeling of overwhelm. All right, so that's setting goals as we're going through this. Next part here, which is really, really important, is this idea of managing your expectations, okay? There's a couple reasons why this is so important, is that when people set unrealistic expectations, that leads to frustration. And the more frustrated people are, it leads to the increased susceptibility of quitting. And so it's really, really important to make sure that we're managing and setting appropriate expectations along the way. There are some people that will use this idea of setting unrealistic expectations as an excuse for not following through. And some people don't like that, but there are some people that use that as their kind of their give up mechanism. And this isn't a judgment call. It's just that's how some people work. Meaning their goal is to say, if I don't lose 20 pounds in 2 months, I'm a failure. And so if they lost 18 pounds, because they didn't lose their 20 pounds, they consider themselves a failure, and then they quit. And they're like, well, I didn't reach my goal, so I might as well not do this, right? So making sure that you're also setting appropriate expectations as you're going through the follow through. So looking at realistic expectations as you're going through this journey, this is one of the things that's really, really important. On average, you're looking at 1 to 2 pounds a week. So when I say that, that does not mean that you should set your expectation of 2 pounds every week for the entire journey of your weight loss program or of your weight loss journey, right? That's not how it works. Some weeks you're going to have a ½ pound. Some weeks you might have 2.5. Some weeks you might have 1, and it will vary throughout this entire process. So realistic expectations, you're looking at 1 to 2 pounds a week. When people go through our program, it's set up where you're going through different phases, where you'll go through a losing phase, which is a little more aggressive towards weight loss, and then you'll go through a maintenance phase, which is focused on maintaining it. But when you look at the time frame over the entire length of the program, it's still going to be 1 to 2 pounds per week. So the other part where this will vary is going to be based upon your sex, how overweight you are, and your age, right? So men will lose weight faster than women. Jumping the gun here. Men will lose weight faster than women for a couple reasons. One, they have more testosterone, and 2, they have more muscle mass. Those 2 factors play a huge role in the rate of how fast people will burn calories. So that's a big part of it. The other factor is how much fat you have to lose. It takes a lot of energy for your body to maintain 20, 40, 60 extra pounds. And so when you cut calories, there's a larger deficit of how many calories your body is burning on a daily basis versus how many you're bringing in for somebody that is 50 pounds overweight versus somebody that's 5 to 10 pounds overweight. So the more body fat you have to lose, the faster you will lose weight. As you get closer and closer to your goal or an ideal weight for your body and for your frame, that rate of loss will slow down. It's super, super normal. So that's something to expect. It's that same premise of like that last 10 pounds is the hardest. Absolutely it is, because your rate of loss starts to slow down as you get closer and closer to your ideal frame and as your ideal size. One of the other things that's very common is that you will generally lose more weight in your first week than the following week. So the first week for pretty much every program that people go on, you will end up losing more weight. And the reason for this is that oftentimes with most programs out there, you are getting rid of foods that are creating a lot of inflammation in your body. And so during that first week, not only are you burning a little bit of body fat, but you're also reducing a whole lot of inflammation in your system. And one of the things that your body uses to help manage inflammation is to hold on to water retention. And so because you're getting rid of all this inflammation, you're also dumping the excess water that your body used to use to manage inflammation, which it no longer needs. So you're dumping excess water and you're also burning a little bit of body fat. And so after that first week, you don't have excess water to keep dumping. So then it's just burning the body fat. And so that's where it is very common. And I mean, I've seen people during that first week lose up to 1 pound a day. And once again, that's not body fat that they're losing. That's a whole bunch of water that their body is dumping because prior to starting the program, they had tons and tons of inflammation. And like I said before, it will slow down as you get closer to your ideal weight through here. And so I love this picture because this is what people expect. And reality, it is all over the place. A couple other things that's important with it. Your weight will fluctuate. It will not go down every single day, even if you follow things perfectly. Let me repeat that phrase because this is one of those expectations that people do not have, is that your weight will fluctuate no matter how good you are. You will have days where you can be perfect on your program for weeks and your weight will not go down every single week. Okay. Everybody loses weight differently. So I shouldn't say everybody, there's 3 general ways that people lose weight that you can kind of categorize yourself in. There are the ebbs and flows where people are, let me try to get the graph here, where it's going down and it's natural to have kind of those ups and downs along the way, but generally it's going in the downward direction. And there are people that lose weight in more of like a step down approach, where they'll drop 2 pounds, they'll stay the same for 3 to 5 days, they'll drop 2 pounds, and then they'll stay the same for 3 to 5 days, and they'll keep repeating that. And if you were to graph it out, it looks more like stairs or steps as they're going down versus a gradual decline. And then there are some people that do the gradual decline where it's relatively stable, relatively similar. That group is actually the least common. And so why is this important? If you're somebody that has the step down approach and you know that when you drop 2 pounds over one day, it's important to realize you might, once again, no matter how good you're doing, your weight might stay the same for the next 3 to 5 days, maybe even up to a week. And then one of those days, you'll drop 2 pounds overnight, 3 pounds overnight, and then it will stay the same again for those 3 to 5 days, maybe another week. It's important to manage those expectations because if you're on day 3 of following the program and doing things really well, and then you're like, this isn't working, and then you go back to the way you were eating before, that caused the problems, you are just a couple of days away from dropping a lot of excess weight. Okay. There are specific reasons why people lose weight in that type of approach. We don't have quite enough time to go over it in this video. I'm already running a little long as well. Like I said before, men generally lose weight faster than women. The other thing that's really, really important when you're looking at managing expectations, you don't want to compare your results to other people's results. You are not them. You do not have the same body composition. You haven't gone through the same history. So you don't want to compare your results to other results. You want to compare your actions to your previous actions. And the reason why is that this is the only thing you actually have control over, right? Everybody else is different. So don't worry about what other people are doing, how they're getting their results, what their rate of loss is. Focus on the things that you are doing, your actions, to your previous actions and go towards changing your actions towards your goal, to help you reach your goal. The other part of it too, when we're looking at managing expectations, is consistency is king. Inconsistent actions will lead to consistent results. So let's say you've got whatever program you're following, and let's say you're acting 75% out of, like, 100% would be perfect, 0 would be not following at all. Let's say you're acting 75% towards that ideal day. Doing that at 75% consistently day after day is much better than doing one day at following at 100% and the next day following at 50 and the next day following at 100 and the next day at 50. The consistent action is what gets your body to change, not inconsistent action. So really, really important with that as well. Consistency is key. All right, last part here, definitions of success. So this is a really, really important expectation process as well. So what does success look like for you? The most common way that people define success is that A has to happen, and then B has to happen, and then C has to happen, and D has to happen. All these things have to happen, and then you're successful. And the problem where that comes into play is that most people's definition of failure is that A has to happen, or B has to happen, or any one of those things can happen, and you're a failure, whereas all of these different scenarios have to happen, and that means that you're successful. So the problem is that people will literally set themselves up for failure. This is way easier to happen if out of a list of 10 different actions, you only need one of them to feel like a failure, whereas out of a list out of 100, or 10 different areas of improvement, you need all of them to happen in order to feel successful. It's a way that people definitely set themselves up, because it's much easier for this failure path to happen than it is for the success path to happen. So what do? You flip the script, right? You flip around. So in order to feel or to have things be failures, A and B and C and D, all of those things have to happen in order for you to have failed, whereas any of these other things, individual of each other, can help you have that feeling, that sensation of success. You're moving in the right direction. This is one of the reasons why having celebrations along the way is super important, because it's acknowledging your different milestones that you're making, so that once again you're acknowledging yourself that you're on the right track, and maybe you just need to give yourself more time, right? So what are the different ways that you can look at this? How you're acting, ways that you can focus on the success, how you're acting, the emotions that you're experiencing, the photographic changes, before and afters, energy levels, right? So what does it mean for you to have your definition of success? What are the specific things that you want to see along your way that you can give that feedback to yourself to say, when this happens, I know I'm moving in the right direction. When this happens, I know that I'm moving. When I go out socially and I make good choices, then I can celebrate those as successes. When I move down pant sizes or shirt sizes, those can be successes, right? What things will be different? How will you know that you're acting differently, right? How will you know you've learned new behaviors? So here's the definition. I love this definition from Alex Hormozy. The definition of having knowledge versus learning something are two different things. Having knowledge is just having the knowledge. You haven't learned anything until your behavior is different based upon the same scenario or the same experience, right? Definition of learning, new behavior, same experience. So until you've actually changed your behavior, just having the information doesn't mean you've actually learned anything, right? So how are you defining your success? So helpfully, you've gotten some really, really good information out of this. Like I said, you want to make sure you set SMART goals because it's important to know where you need to go. And by not being able to set specific and measurable and attainable and time-framed goals, you don't know if you're ever going to get there. And it's hard to course correct if you're going the wrong path if you have no idea where you're trying to get to anyways. Make sure that you are setting yourself up with realistic expectations. When you use unrealistic expectations, you set yourself up for frustration. As frustration builds, it leads to people saying, I'm done, which then ultimately leads to failing. And then make sure you're defining what it means to be successful. Have those little wins along the way. Everyone's ideal health and ideal weight is going to be different. There's no right or wrong, but make sure that you are giving yourselves along the way to reinforce that you are on the right path. A lot of people are going down the right path. They just need to be more patient and they need to give themselves more time. And so if you just give yourself those expectations and saying, this is a lifelong journey, it's okay if I'm not there tomorrow or next week or the next month, because as long as I know I keep acting in this behavior, I will continually reach or eventually reach my goals. That's all you need. So I hope you guys got some good information out of this. Please, please make sure you evaluate yourself. If you just listen to this and you don't change anything about the topics that we've talked about, you haven't learned anything, and then it was a waste of time. So learn, change your behavior, evaluate your progress, evaluate how you are setting up your expectations. Go back, if you haven't already, make sure you set up your SMART goals and give yourself some really good definitions so that you can acknowledge that you are moving in the right direction along the way. All right, thanks a lot. Have a good one.